Okay, 7:01, calling the meeting of the Beaver Dam Lake Protection and Rehabilitation District Resident Advisory Board for June 2021 to order. All righty, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I need a flag for the computer screen. All right, so do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Dave, second. Colette. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. All right, so just a quick roll call. Oh my gosh, we're all here. All right, so Erica Dahl in the building with me. Colette Fallon.
David Miskovic.
And other board members via Zoom, Kevin Boyle, wave, Fred Widman, and Walter Blos. All right, we're all the parties here now. Okay, so we'll jump right in with what we usually start with, which is the dam project update. So you'll be excited to hear, since we met last, we reached the point of the final hold and completed it as of June 4th. So the inspection was complete and DPW has closed the sluice gates to allow for the lake to refill to its normal operating level, which is cresting over the dam. So I'll show you a quick picture of what that looks like right now, and we'll talk a little bit about it. All right, so this is where we are right now. If you are, I'm going to go through and mute folks that aren't muted. Alrighty. Okay, so this is a picture of earlier today. Thanks, Wally and Kathy, for allowing me to go on your boat today and check out the dam a little closer up. So as you can see, we are just a couple inches shy of cresting over the dam. And if the rain starts here, as it seems like it's going to, we may be there, very shortly. So this is where we are. And it's a little bit hard to see in this picture, but there is some signage here and here asking people to stay back at least 100 feet from the dam. Now that's not marked out. 100 feet is not marked out yet in the water. So we just ask you really avoid the dam right now. In general, stay back from it. We definitely don't want anything to happen to our beautiful new construction. And we want everybody to stay really safe around our dam. So, it's generating a lot of curiosity, but please do not trespass on the other side of the dam site either. It's still an active construction site. And we would appreciate if everyone just avoid the area and stay 100 feet back with your boats. Thank you. Okay. So at some point in the next week or so, they may drop the level to about where it is now, just below the spillway, to test the sluice gates one more time. Beyond this, the lake will be refilled. Future periodic inspections will be conducted in accordance with the refill plan over the next 12 months. And the DPW is working with CBI to close out the remaining punch list items, which, for example, the electric setup of the sluice gate operators. Anything else to add on the dam project, board members?
You're good.
All right, then we'll move along to beach and lifeguards. If we should lose power or internet, I will follow up with an email to everyone on the lake about when we will reconvene the meeting. Just a little bit nervous with the storm that I'm hearing outside. Next topic is beach and lifeguards. So there's a couple of pieces to this. So the first one is that we have received now 10 applications, which is really exciting. We are looking to hire 6 folks, a supervising lifeguard and 5 seasonal lifeguards. Unfortunately, of the 10 who have applied, 2 applicants are fully qualified and 1 is working on their certification credentials to recertify them this week. So 2 lifeguards have been interviewed. Another interview is scheduled of the people who meet the qualifications. To lifeguard at Beaver Dam Lake, you need several things, but the 2 big certifications that you need are CPR AED, first aid for the professional rescuer. That's the piece that's hanging people up. And also not just your lifeguard certification, but your waterfront lifeguard certification. Alrighty, so if you know anybody, feel free, still send them my way. You can have them email bdlboard@gmail.com and we will make sure to get them all of the information to apply. I can't interview them until they make that through the county HR department and have those 2 qualifications. So there's not wiggle room with those 2 certs. Our permit inspection to open the beach was scheduled for this past Wednesday. And unfortunately, we had some algal blooms where we decided to postpone it to this Wednesday. And our lifeguards had to do some of the hiring paperwork anyway, so we don't have anyone available to lifeguard at this time. So we moved that permit inspection to next Wednesday. And we'll talk about the algal blooms in a minute, but we are looking forward to that. So Tom Lark, our maintenance gentleman, and Dave have been feverishly working to get our beach set up. And a big thank you, I don't know if he's on the call tonight, but Bart, our community building neighbor, was really helpful, let us use his boat, volunteered his time to get the buoys and lines in the water to get the beach set up. So really thank you to those volunteers and to Dave for helping to manage the beach permit requirements ahead of our inspection. New beach sand is expected to be delivered next week. The order was just approved by the county this afternoon, so we'll be adding to our beach sand. Anything else about the beach right now? We're going to talk about reserve, like how the reserves are used in a minute, but just in terms of the beach permitting.
Yeah, just to reiterate what you said, Eric, a big thank you to Dave, one of the board members. Great job, Dave, dedicating your time to bring the beach together. Really appreciate it. And like I said, the beach neighbor, Bart, and Tom also put a lot of hours actually into doing what they did out there to rope out everything. So it shouldn't be underestimated the level of effort that was put into that. So thank you.
Thank you, Wally.
Looks fantastic.
Absolutely. So that being said, the beach is not open right now. So please do not try to use the beach on Reserve 4. There is a fence blocking it off. There is signage all over Reserve 4. We do not have lifeguards. The beach is not open at this time. We're working very hard to get it fixed. 2 limiting reagents, qualified lifeguards, and we have to get our permit. Okay. There's nothing else on the beach. I'm going to move into talking about the algal blooms that we've experienced this past week. So I know this is a review for a lot of you, but we have a lot of new residents and we have new water in the lake. So I really want to make sure that we're all going to stay as safe as possible. And I want to go through this with you and show you some pictures of what we're talking about. So I'm going to use the acronym HAB, which stands for harmful algal blooms. And I'm going to show you some pictures of what they look like. Okay. All right. So harmful algal blooms are very hard to differentiate from non-toxic, non-harmful algal blooms. So some species of algae can be toxic to people and animals, and they look similar. So I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. This is a harmful algal bloom. So it might look like this with parallel streaks, usually green on the surface of the water. Here's another example of a harmful algal bloom. It might look like green dots, clumps, or globs on the surface of the water. It may look like blue, green, or white spilled paint. When we experienced it here at the beach this past weekend, this is what it looked like for us. Or it may look like bright green water or pea soup. So these are all examples of harmful algal blooms and what they might look like. Here are some examples of the non-toxic algal blooms, okay? So as you can tell, they can easily be mistaken. They can be pretty similar. So I say this only to reiterate that if you see something like this, do not go in it. they're triggered by a combination of water and environmental conditions that include excess nutrients, which we've talked a lot about here on this meeting, phosphorus and nitrogen, which our lake has experienced historically. Lots of sunlight, low water and low flow conditions, calm water, and water temperatures. So this past week, it has been hot, it has been sunny, and depending upon the water conditions of the lake, HABs can be really short-lived or they can be longer and persistent. So over this past weekend, there was a lot of questions about what was appearing in the water. And a lot of what I was sent was in fact HABs. So people and pets should avoid any contact with these floating mats, scums, or discolored water. Dogs are especially at risk because usually if you're a person and you go into some of these algal blooms, you don't then lick it off of yourself. Dogs do. And because of that, it can be especially risky because they're ingesting it and they could die. So never drink, prep food, cook, or make ice with surface water. Definitely avoid ingesting anything that looks like this. If you do contact it when you are swimming or recreating and you don't see it before you come in contact with it, rinse thoroughly with clean water. And I shared some links earlier this week via email with more information. I'm going to put them in the notes of this YouTube recording as well, so that everybody has data on the harmful algal blooms. If you see it, you can report it using the website that I linked in the last email. I'll also link it down if you're watching this on YouTube, and you can take a picture of it with your phone and report it right from your phone. It's a pretty quick questionnaire. You just click the link and it takes you less than 5 minutes to report it. DEC does not have the authority to close the entire lake in the event of a bloom, nor would we want to necessarily. Just because there's a bloom in one area doesn't necessarily mean it's widespread and other places in the lake can't be used for recreation. But if it is at the swim beach, because it is a public swim beach, we will have to close the beach, and we'll post signage. We'll let people know why it is closed, and we will have the water tested. The water testing process for a HAB at a public swim beach is a little bit extensive, and the timing is a bit inconvenient. So what I mean by that is we would have to have the water tested when we saw the algal bloom. Then after the algal bloom is gone for 24 hours, we can have the water tested again. And then when we get that back clear, then we can open the swim beach again. So it's not a matter of we see it today and we don't see it tomorrow, so we can open the beach. How far away from the bloom do you need to be safe? I'm going to say if you can see it, you're too close. But you can look at the descriptions on the DEC and New York State EPA, the EPA and the New York State DEC websites that I'm sending out about algal blooms. So also please remember Reserve 4, that's the reserve the community building is on, 557 Shore Drive, is the only reserve that is used for swimming and wading. So right now we don't have lifeguards, which means there's not a public place on Beaver Dam Lake that you should be wading and swimming. Other reserves you can use to launch your boats and kayaks and things like that, but you shouldn't be wading in the water at those beaches. So I'll talk about a little bit more in the residence forum, but we're going to be posting some signage reminding folks not to be swimming at the other reserve properties. Okay. Any further information from the other board members about specifically HABs?
Yeah, just to reiterate, Erica, you did a great job explaining it, but you have to say, what does it mean to me if you see a HAB? And if you go into a HAB, if you actually swim in it, what does it mean to you? And the bottom line is it can make you as a human being very, 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 very sick if you get it into your body and ingest it. And conversely, if you have a dog, if they lick off the fur, it can die. There's been an incident where the DEC has documented many pets have died actually from ingesting the material from a HAB. So bottom line, if you see it, don't take the risk, don't do it. this past weekend, I think it was communicated that there were HABs on the lake. And I personally saw people on the lake with their dogs and swimming in the lake right after we said that, including children who were swimming in the lake. You're taking a risk when you do that. Good. That's that part. And the other part, Erica, too, you did a good job explaining the fact that, if you see a HAB, we have to take a sample. You have to wait for it to clear 24 hours. You have to take another sample. The part that I think is missing from the picture is how long does it take to get results from the testing?
So it can be up to a week before we'd be able to open the beach again. And that's if the HAB is cured today and gone tomorrow. So we have to wait for the first results to come back. And then we will have to wait for the results to come back after it's been gone for 24 hours. So again, they can be persistent or they can be gone. If you were out on the lake at all today, you'll notice that a lot of, including our beach area, looks pristine again. So it was just the conditions over the weekend that caused it to happen. Now they're gone. And in the event that our beach was open, we may still have to have it closed right now. So please be patient with us if this happens throughout the season. We know that it was a problem in 2017 when it was open last. So we're going to do our very best. I live across the street from the lake. So if you can't access it, I can't access it. But at the same token, I have a little one, and if I don't feel safe to let my little one in there, I'm certainly not gonna let anyone else's little ones in there. So, yes, Fred?
I think you ought to mention, as Stephanie mentioned during our training period, that this is not just a problem for Beaver Dam Lake. They're finding this all over the state right now, that as soon as the water and air temperatures started to rise, boom, there it is again. So it's not just us.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Fred. In fact, on Saturday, when we first noticed it, she said on the map, a bunch of other lakes were lighting up that day too. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Anything else specific to HABs? Again, I'm going to continue to send out a lot of information about it. And we'll talk about how that's going to happen in the resident forum because we got a lot of concerned folks in the email about that this week.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Erica, then too, it's not that we're the police and trying to impose these stiff rules about don't go into the lake and go into HABs and stuff like that. We're your friends, we're your neighbors, we're all like a tight family. We're trying to do is protect you. We're communicating what we're seeing. So don't take it the wrong way when we put it out there. It's all about protecting you, and that's what we're trying to do.
So we don't want to take the fun out of the lake.
We don't want to take the fun out of the lake.
Yeah.
So do lakefront properties need to wait until we get results from testing as well, or can we enter if there's no sign of it? So that's a really good question. The only area that I can have tested is the beach. So we'll keep you informed of where the beach is. But again, if you are not anywhere near the beach and you're not experiencing HAB where you are, it's certainly not to say that you can't recreate in the lake by your property. But if you see it, certainly don't go in it. And I'll send out any other guidance documents that I can find that can help people kind of navigate what to do when this happens. Hopefully we don't experience it too much. But again, I would rather have that information as widespread as possible every time it does happen. Okay. All right, so Walter, do you want to talk about the Lake Health Committee?
Sure. Okay, what I'm going to do is give the cliff notes here of the version of what we'll cover tomorrow on the Lake Health Committee. There's a lot of what actually the results we've gotten back. The first part we'll talk about is the Northeast Aquatics. Northeast Aquatics was the company we originally hired to come out and do the study about the vegetation in the lake. We recently gave another contract to them to come out and spend another day with us to give us some more insights about what's going on. So on May 28th, Fred and I spent the majority of the day with two of their scientists, AJ and Hillary. Incredibly smart people, like beyond, it blows me away how smart they are. The objective of the visit was a couple folds. One was to collect water quality data to get a sense of what's going on with our current status of our water quality. Second was to collect a sediment data in the deep water down by the dam. The third was to look at the plant vegetation that's floating around our lake that we're all concerned with and everybody sees out there and what it means to us. And the last part was to take a look at the watershed inputs into our lake and take samples there and try to see what's going on and what we should know about that. And the output from that was recommendations. They came up with five recommendations specific to the board, and there were 7 recommendations that came out for residents. So I think it's important, Eric, if we could actually communicate the results of this report that we got today from them to everybody. But I'd like to do this very, very quickly from the water quality data. Tom, you'll appreciate a lot of this. The lake clarity was very good for a lake that's been notoriously bad. The water was noticeably tannic with the dissolved organic compounds. Basically, they said that our lake is a relatively new lake. Lake only changes over so many times in a year. Because we closed the gates back in March and it filled up. This is a relatively new lake. It's new water, so it's not surprising to see that the clarity was good. They were surprised to hear that we did have a HAB though over the weekend. So the clarity, like I said, was good. The dissolved oxygen was low for what they expected. It was 80%. They were expecting to see 100%. Conductivity was fairly high. We'll go into all these details tomorrow on the Lake Health Committee. The deep water down by the dam, if you notice what we've been doing to maintain level, which it turns out was very good for us. We've been using the sluice gates, the 18-inch gate primarily, to be able to open it up to basically do a drawdown for water coming. We need it to hold level. So as water was coming in, we needed to be able to drain water out. We did that by operating the 18-inch sluice gate. Many people probably smelled sulfur down by the dam. That's because it was a result of flushing out the water from that deep area down there. That, from a health standpoint, is very good for the lake because it was actually flushing it out. So the good part of that was good for us. The cyanobacteria blooms, I did send pictures to them from the weekend, and they were actually surprised to see that. And they basically said they don't have a direct understanding of why we're having that this early. They said it's not unusual for late spring, early summer, like in May into June timeframe, because of the nutrients in the lake for that to occur. It did occur, and it doesn't mean we're going to have a very, very bad year. It's just normal for this time of year is what they were trying to say. But it said through the C-SLAP testing that Fred is very instrumental with, that'll help paint a better picture. And then keep in mind, when we do for lake health, it's prevention, detection, and correction. And it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. Prevention is treating yourself healthy. Detection is going to your doctor's appointments, and correction means you had the heart attack, it's too late. We don't want to be in the correction mode too often, which is where we're trying to deal with algae blooms. We want to be doing is up front in the prevention and detection. So the sampling that we're doing and the testing is helping us stay in the prevention and detection so we don't end up in the other category. Keep in mind that's long-term stuff. That's not a really quick fix. So we're talking over the period of like a year and a half of taking test data to say, what does all this mean to us? Second part was that deep water sample. That was to collect the deep water sample that they did earlier. That was one that they had missed. That's going to take at least 4 more weeks to get the results back from that. The next part was the uprooted plant growth in the coves. They are recommending, and we're pursuing that with mechanical harvesting. We're trying to get a contract in place with a company by the name of Solitude. We've been working with the DPW and Solitude to work it out, the terminology of that contract. We're hoping to get that in place as quick as we can so we can skim the existing floating vegetation out there. We took Northeast Aquatics out there. They feel the scope is pretty big, so we're going to try to prioritize because we'll probably have them for 2 days when they do come. We'll have to prioritize our time and then address the rest with volunteers. Northern Cove, the majority of the vegetation is down in the Eastern Cove, which is where the wind blows everything. Up in the Northern Cove, up at the boat launch, what you're seeing up there is a lot of new growth of the plants coming up. Some of the plants up there, the aquatic plants that you're seeing, are actually very good for the lake. So if you're a lakefront property owner, I get the point that you can't get onto the water because of all the new growth coming up from the cattails. The recommendation from Northeast Aquatics is to create a channel off of your property through that new growth. But if it works for you, try to keep as much around your property because it's actually very, very good for the lake and very good for your property also. So it's like a balance, trying to make it usable for your lake and also trying to open it up. Keep in mind, cattails will live in anywhere from 10 to 18 inches of water. So in the shallow areas down like in the Eastern Cove, there's a chance some of those cattails are now going to survive going on unless we make a decision to clear some of them out. They also spent some time at the watershed locations. Their biggest concern they had, which was pointed out to one of our residents, was the sewage overflow, which we get from stormwater. What happens is that when that overflows, it dumps sewage right into our lake. That we need to try to get a handle on. They're actually getting involved. I talked to them extensively. I've also talked to the town supervisors. They're going to make direct calls with them and give recommendations of what needs to be done to fix the sewage issues coming in. And then as far as recommendations, I'm not going to cover them because I spoke too much already, but we'll communicate them out to everybody. And I think there's some really good stuff in there. That is for the Northeast Aquatic updates. Solitude, we are working with them to try to get the contract in place to do the mechanical removal of vegetation. Dealing with county is a new experience for me. Very, very adapt to when I used to work at Indian Point. If you put a contract in place and need a change order to a purchase order, it takes about an hour. It takes 1 week just to get the paperwork put together. It takes a couple weeks to get it approved. It's like driving me crazy, but it is what it is. We are working with them and we are pushing that and we're trying to do our best to try to get that out. The other part is a request for bid for lake treatments. Eric and I are working with DPW to get that out as quick as we can. So in the event we need to make treatments for the lake, we have that in place to be able to deal with it. All that being said, the next meeting will be tomorrow at 6:30. Is that correct, Erica?
Yes, and I'll send out the link to just the Lake Health Committee members with the Zoom notification of that meeting. So if you want to be on the Lake Health Committee, just email bdlboard@gmail.com, let us know and we'll get you added, and then we'll send you the Zoom link for that meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 if you just can't get enough spending time with us.
I tried to cover about an hour and a half's worth of information in about 5 minutes. And Fred, do you have anything to add before we open up to questions from the residents?
Regarding now the lake health, no, just regarding the testing that we're going to be performing. Just the CSLAP, the first series of tests are going to be on next Sunday, the 19th. We've already made arrangements with Kevin to use his boat, or shall I say yacht, to bring us out to the typical area for testing. And once we get the samples, we'll send them up to Nice-Fola in Syracuse. And at that point, we're hoping or trying to every 2 weeks take another sampling for a total of 8 throughout the season. That's basically it. And again, Stephanie from what was she from the DEC, or I forget where she was from, did an excellent job training the CSLAP people.
Thank you so much. And we're going to jump to CSLAP in one second, just to stay on Wally's.
Yeah, I didn't know what he exactly wanted my input on that.
Yeah, from Northeast Aquatics, Fred, do you have any input from our day we spent on the lake with Northeast Aquatics?
Well, I've just read their report and very thorough. And I must say, you mentioned it before, they are extremely thorough and extremely knowledgeable. And they had a big interest in monitoring what is coming into the lake for possible remediation. They have a couple of suggestions regarding either working with the towns or to implement some sort of basin catching or something else to help prevent a lot of the nutrients from coming in. So I really am quite impressed with the company, and I'm anxious to see what else they have to report.
And if I can just add one more thing to what the two of you were just mentioning. So the floating vegetation we're working on, and we're going to talk again at the Lake Health Committee more specifically about organizing some volunteer efforts to take some of the vegetation that's closer to shore away as a collective group. But thank you so much for the residents that have been removing the floating vegetation. We know that not everybody's property was affected in the same way. We do know that we've been pulling it up from some of the reserves the best that we can. We know it's not easy, and that it's just kind of a fact of this refill right now. So thank you so much, Wally, for your diligent pushing of getting the manual harvesting contract put through. We know that it's a slow process.
Can
I
I
really
make
do
it, Erica, Harry Blackman, I'd like to interrupt just a quick second here. One of the issues with the floating stuff is that that's a perfect foster for the nutrients that are in the lake. And on my cove, it's covered with the algae bloom. So you couldn't, here's this toxic algae bloom. How are you going to manually take that stuff out? I've talked to Solitude, and even them, their harvesting will be not their traditional harvesting because this is floating. So their harvester won't come into the shallow ground. That floating waste will need to be pushed out so the harvester can take care of it. 2 days, I think, is dubious that it would cover the extent of that stuff that's floating on the eastern shore. And if you're talking about, the cattails that are growing, it would have been nice if the landowners had had an idea that that was something that was going to be an issue that would change their lakefront, because Solitude charges $5,000 a day to use that harvester in that kind of way. So I think we need some more information, and hopefully that contract, something happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. So Wally, you can jump in, but I just want to say that one of the considerations for the 2 days of the length of time and expectation of it being 2 days is that it has to be done really timely. And how the county procurement process works is if you need something done timely, there's a dollar amount. So we're going to do the best that we can with the 2 days that we will have Solitude here on site. And again, there's some lakefront properties that are challenging. So we're trying to put some volunteer efforts. I know, Harry, that you've been communicating directly with DPW concerning your personal property. You're not the only one. You're not the only one.
I understand. I'm not the only one. It's just that these are issues that need to be raised. I mean, everybody on some level will be concerned about the algae bloom. The beach isn't that far from the eastern shore. And some of that is because of the nutrients that are going into the lake from that floating waste. And that's not going to stop until that's taken care of. And the fact that the algae bloom is all over that stuff on the eastern shore makes manual volunteer work virtually impossible, because you can't get it on your skin. We would be, human beings will be affected by that. I don't know how you intend to get volunteers to go into the water with rakes and, to deal with that, given the algae bloom it's still there. I mean, my property is there today.
So thank you for that input, and we will take that into consideration as we go forward planning with Solitude. Do we have any other questions? Kathy?
Just, Harry, I just want to say, I mean, they are talking about the algae bloom, and it is toxic to, and some people do have a reaction to it. And you should be careful of it. I'm just saying that it's not, if you do get it on it, if you come out and you wash yourself off, you'll be fine. I mean, I've been up here my whole life.
I don't mean to cut you off, Kathy, but just in the interest of time and staying on the
I'm
agenda.
just saying you can go in and then come out and wash yourself, and you shouldn't have a problem with it if, you can get in there and clean up your area.
Not recommending folks go into algal.
No, I know, I'm just saying, but if you do get it on you, just take a shower and wash it off.
Kathy, my property has 400 feet of lakefront, and the waste goes out 30 feet.
We're
Not happening.
Oh,
on this
all right,
call,
sorry.
Yeah.
on this call is to discuss individual properties. So I know, again, Harry, that you're working with the county and with us, and thank you for your input. And we'll continue. Again, there's residents that are having to pull it out. So we knew this was partially going to be a problem. So we'll continue to work with Solitude. We're trying to get it done as quickly as we can. We're sick of pulling it out of the water too on the reserves, guys. We've all been out there doing it as well. If you have any concerns about it, or you want to participate in Lake Health Committee, which is tomorrow at 6:30, not 6 o'clock. Kevin and Sarah, we did have to change the time a little bit. I do see a question. When would the harvest of the floating weeds be done? I hope that we are considering the northern end of the lake in the cleaning. It has a mixture of both green growth and brown floating weeds. It's very difficult to get boats to use the portion of this lake. So we're working with Solitude to identify those high priority areas. But we hear you. And then Chris, remember that cattails are good and can be harvested when the bloom isn't active. Yes. So some vegetation, the buffer vegetation is actually really good for the lake. Is there anything, Wally or Fred, that you'd want to add to that?
Just one basic thing is that one thing that they mentioned from NEC, Northeast Aquatics rather, that the floating vegetation that we're getting out of the lake, and many of us are doing it on our properties, she feels, based on the testing that they performed earlier in the year, that there is not a lot of nutrient in the floating vegetation. So really, other than it being a nuisance, especially if there's some hab mixed in with it, the main reason to get it away from your property is so you're not ending up with a mucky situation when you're trying to use the beach. They're really two separate issues. And while we can try to get rid of the floating vegetation, and trust me, it's not easy. It's really different than the nutrient involving the HABs, which is just there anyway, regardless of the floating vegetation. And that's all I have to add.
Wally, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, just thank you for everybody's input. I personally do a tour of the lake. I cover the coastal line probably 1-2 times a day. I'm able to see how bad it is in front of everybody's house. It's very clear to me that the East Coast is by far the worst. That is a 10. The Northern Cove up where the boat launch is, that is probably more like a 6 compared to the Eastern Cove. The perimeter of the lake, some residents have been doing an amazing job pulling it out because they've been staying on top of it. It's hard work and they do it well, and they've been keeping ahead of it. They actually got it out before the HABs occurred, so they did a great job. So it is what it is. It's everybody has to do their part. It's kind of where we're at right now. That's it.
Right. So from there, we'll move on to the CSLAP training, which Fred was alluding to before. So we did have DEC here on Saturday. Stephanie was a representative. She came out. She trained new volunteers, and she retrained existing volunteers on how to collect samples from deep and shallow sections of our lake, and there to test for nitrogen, phosphorus, and other water quality indicators so that the data can be used by us to figure out how best to treat our lake going forward. So appreciative again. Thank you so much, Fred, Molly, Dave, for participating in that training. Fred, was there anything specific you wanted to add regarding CSLAP training?
Yeah, mea culpa on my part that the first testing will be done on Sunday, the 13th, not the 19th. Thank you, Molly, for correcting me on that one. I'm actually looking forward to going back to doing the sampling again after 2 years. I think it's a very valuable bit of information that we're providing to the state as part of a tremendous number of lakes that participate in this program. And other than a wonderful boat ride with Kevin, it's a great program, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. And if you want to see CSLAP data from the past, it is on the Orange County Beaver Dam Lake website, and you can see the type of data that's collected, and you can see the historical data. All of those reports are available there. The report that Wally was alluding to from Northeast Aquatics that we just got today, we're going to give the Lake Health Committee a couple of days to digest it, and then I'll make sure it's put up on our county website as well for all to access that. Anything further on that? Yes, no? All right. If that's all on that, make sure that you have your parking permits and your boats permitted. So Fred has been busting his butt getting these tickets and permits done for folks for their cars and for their boats. We're getting a ton in. We're really excited to see it. Make sure you get it done. I include the link in just about every email that I send out. So that it's available. You can just, an easy way to do it, you can Google Beaver Dam Lake, Orange County. Our website comes up, lots of super fun information on that website, including the permit program. So I will link it in this YouTube video again. Get your stuff permitted because you can be ticketed, and we don't want you ticketed on the reserves where we live. So make sure you get that done. We are also going to be working on getting the boat launches, the reserve properties. There have been a lot of abandoned boats that are not stickered on those properties. So that's something that's going to be addressed in the near future. So if your boat is sitting down on a reserve property, please get it permitted. What are the times to turn in our permit papers? So if you look at the permit application online, it has our address. You mail it in with your information and a self-addressed envelope, and it gets mailed back to you. You don't have to be anywhere at specific hours. We're trying to make it as convenient as possible. And then when Fred gets it in, he shreds all of your personal information. We don't keep any of it. He just uses it for the purposes of issuing the permit. So get those in, get those done, because for all of the concerns that we have about trespassing and the use of our lake, we can't do anything about it if we don't know who lives here and who doesn't live here, right? So make sure you get that done.
Erica, there was another question regarding placement of the sticker. And I think in the sheet, it gives the whole outline, but basically it's on the rear window, back window on the, normally on the driver's side, bottom portion of the back windshield. So it doesn't hinder any kind of view from that window. So that's generally where most people put it. However, it can be placed on the rear bumper if you want to, but it's easier on the window.
And if you've had one, if it's orange and you have one already, no action is required. It was extended from 2017 through 2022. If you've already got one, you've got no more work to do, but make sure your boats also have a sticker on it. Okay. And please don't launch your boat from Reserve 4. Reserve 4 will be for swimming. I am not able to get it permitted as a swim beach if people are launching their boats or docking their boats on Reserve 4 or fishing from that reserve. So please don't do that here. There's 7 other properties for that. So, alrighty. If nothing else on the permit system, the community yard sale. So Christine, are you on here, Christine Little? You're usually on all these meetings. On here or not? All right, I don't see her, but I'm still gonna shout her out. Christine Little ran the yard sale that we had this past Saturday, which over 50 homes participated in. It was done totally for free. She did a beautiful job with it. You know, Beaver Dam Lake was bustling with people that day. It was wonderful to see our lake here, our community come into life for the yard sale. So huge shout out to her. That requires a lot more behind the scenes than most folks realize. And I did receive, on that note, some frustrated emails from people who were unaware that there was going to be a yard sale. And in every case of these individuals, I went back and noted the sent emails that had the flyer attached to them. So what I'm asking is, before you write me a nastygram, please make sure to read your emails, especially as we are going into lake season and we will be sending you vital information about HABs, about what's opening when, about access to things. I try not to send too many of them, guys. I try to keep it to once a month unless there's something real pressing. Try not to be too wordy. Please read your emails. If your neighbors seem to be unaware of what's going on, mention that they should send us an email. It is not the Residents of Beaver Dam is a Facebook page that I am an admin on. It is not associated necessarily with the board. So I know people use that a lot to get information, but that's not where I give all the information. All of the information about our lake is found via the BDL board at gmail.com email. So if you want to make sure you're getting all the info, email that email address. Dave.
I just want to say, if you're not receiving an email at least once a month, please reach out to us. I'm getting a couple of bounce backs for some emails that already have been established for months and months and months, but now they're actually bouncing now, 2 parties this week actually. But very important, if you're not receiving any emails from us, please email us at the bdlboard@gmail.com, and I'll get you on the listserv so you will receive all the information you require.
All right. So chances are, if you're on this meeting right now, you're getting those emails because that's where you got this link.
Correct.
But just make sure that you're reading everything that is sent. And tell your neighbors about it, that they need to register for it so we can make sure. We have about 500 now.
Oh, no,
We have more than 500 now.
Correct.
We have a little over 500 emails now in the last year and a half that we've been building the more secure email address. So please, if you know your neighbors are not on it, have them get on it so that they're receiving all of the information, especially going into this season where the lake is going to be open.
Possibly we're scheduled to do maybe another mailing in January again or February,
Okay.
But not this year.
Okay. So another shout out to Dave Miskovic, who is a board member who works tirelessly to input everybody's email addresses and organizes that entire system. And more work is required behind the scenes again with that than folks recognize. So it's another project the board is working on, especially Dave. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so I'm going to read a resident. I'm not going to read it. So I got a couple of emails from residents this month and the last week specifically about notifying folks of the algal blooms. So did not fall on deaf ears. We heard you want more signage. We heard you saw people swimming at reserves. We heard you, and they're not all in these meetings, right? A lot of them are teenagers and our young people. So we're going to post bigger and better signage at all the reserves besides the swim beach. Then no swimming is allowed there. And we're going to, if we are experiencing HABs down at the beach, you're going to see signage everywhere about it. I tried to shout it out on Facebook, definitely. But if you see me put it and you know other places on our social media that I am not, please post that information there as well so people are aware of it. I will send emails out through the BDL board email and let you know. And that's if we have had problems at Reserve 4 at the beach. Okay, because that again should be the only place that people are going in the water. Okay. All right. So with that said, any board members have any additional comments? I see no Fred, no Kevin, no Dave.
Just check your Facebook. You're on your phone, just check your Facebook before you go in. Before you get on your kids, you start going in.
Yeah, check your email.
Yeah, there's only 2 ways to communicate.
Yeah.
There's only Facebook, obviously the residence page, and the email address. We're not going to go around with sirens. You know, I mean, there's only 2 ways.
And it will be the email address. That will be the way
Yeah.
that I'm using.
For sure.
So, the email address. Wally, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a thank you to everybody again. And I'm new to the board, and it's a huge learning curve for me, but a deep appreciation for all the previous board members that have been involved and all the current board members. You guys do a ton of work, and it definitely should not be unrecognized. Good job.
And to Wally's point, we do have a vacancy in Cornwall. So as our bylaws state, we are able to appoint a resident, but it has to be a resident from Cornwall because that's where the vacancy is. So if you are interested in participating in our super fun and exciting board and spending a little bit more time volunteering with us and you live in Cornwall, please send me an email. We are excited to have people who want to be active in the lake. It is a lot of fun. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have about that. And what's interesting is if the board were to appoint a person to that vacancy, they would have to run again in December at the next election, which means you'd have a unique opportunity if you live in Cornwall and you are interested in learning more about it to kind of try it before you buy it, right? So get in contact with us, bblboard@gmail.com. If you live in Cornwall and you're interested in being appointed for the board until December when another election will happen. And we'll talk about that election more as we get closer.
Not even throw shout out to Walter Gloss. I mean, he hit the ground running when he started in January. And
A
has
very good point.
participated in a lot since January 2nd.
Very good point. So Wally absolutely has been working tirelessly on all of the lake health stuff. He's out there every day answering resident concerns and has absolutely hit the ground running. So thank you so much. I see, are there term limits? So yeah, so it is generally a 3-year term. We had resignations happen periodically in the past, and David Miskovic, you have a 2-year term, so you'll be up for a new seat. But by and large, they're 3-year terms unless a seat sat vacant. So that Cornwall seat may only be 2 years. So the terms are 3 years, and then you'd have to run again, generally speaking.
Erica, just to clarify, that Cornwall position that is open, if somebody were to graciously volunteer to get involved with this fun team here, if they were to get in, would they have to run again in December, or are they good for 2 years?
They would have to run again in December, and then after December, it would be 2 years from then.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so reach out if you're interested. It is fun. It's a great way to meet your neighbors.
If you personally don't want to do it, if you know somebody that you think would fit well and try to help to make a big difference, give us their name also. We'll reach out to them.
Harass them, we'll harass them.
Way of saying the same.
Okay, are there any other questions from residents? Or comments from residents? Is there any update on the status of the $1 million grant for the dam project? Not that I'm aware of off the top of my head, but I will find that out and I can email it to you, Lee. Thank you for that question. Any other questions or comments? You can, if you think of them later, you can always email me. And this meeting will be posted to YouTube also with all of the links. All right, without seeing anything further, do a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Fred, second. Wally, everybody, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Erica. Great job.
Bye, guys.